Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again, and like all of you guys, yesterday I was watching this OnePlus Nord launch, and I must say that from the AR launch to just the entire presentation, it was a very memorable experience. Then, like all of you guys, I received a dozen or more so videos inundated with OnePlus Nord impressions and unboxings. And as I'm sitting there with my OnePlus 8 Pro watching these unboxings, I noticed one thing. The edge of the OnePlus Nord looks a little bit different than the OnePlus 8 Pros. And yet I was even more surprised to see a number of reviewers and publications say that the phone was using Gorilla Glass 5 on the front and back and had an aluminum metallic frame. Now, I've reviewed a number of phones here in this region from companies like Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, and I'm very familiar with this hardened type of plastic that a lot of OEMs are using now. And so that's why I was really surprised to see so many publications and reviewers not only forgetting to mention the build of this phone, but also actually mistaking the build of the phone as being a glass and aluminum sandwich. And there was only one video that I did see that shared the true details of the build quality of the OnePlus Nord. It's Gorilla Glass 5 on the front, on the back, and it's using plastic on the edge with metallic buttons similar to this OnePlus 8 Pro. Now, I have no problem with plastic being used or hardened plastic for the frame of the phone. In fact, Xiaomi's been doing this with a lot of their phones recently, and once you've actually used these phones in the hand, it's very clear to know the difference. But I just couldn't believe, as I watched video after video, seeing all of these reviewers and all of these publications getting it wrong. But then I went back and looked at the launch again, and I did notice that OnePlus, while talking about the premium build quality of the phone and the Gorilla Glass back, failed to mention anything about the build of materials of the phone. And if you go to the OnePlus Nord website in the specs page, you will see there's no section dedicated to the build quality or the materials used of the phone. You see dimensions, you see Gorilla Glass 5 mentioned, but no mention of the fact that they are using a hardened plastic for the edge of the OnePlus Nord. And meanwhile, GSM Arena, so many other publications saying it was an aluminum edge. And I think honestly, OnePlus was okay with them making that mistake, because the reality is, guys, aluminum and glass has always been the most premium feeling that you can use in a phone these days. And I don't think that OnePlus has a problem people actually getting that wrong. People thinking that their OnePlus Nord is built exactly the same way as their flagship OnePlus 8 Pro. Now, I'm not trying to make this a big scandal or anything like that, but I do feel that OnePlus should just be upfront with the types of materials that they've used. And if they are using a hardened polycarbonate on the edge of their phone, that's fine. Just go ahead and say it. Embrace it. Don't hide from the fact that you're using less premium materials in your mid-range phone. And it also surprised me how many reviewers out there from the US and from other places who just did not know the difference, or really didn't know how to tell the difference between what is an aluminum edge and a hardened plastic edge phone. Well, guys, I've been dealing with these phones for a long time, so let me give you a few pointers here how you can actually find this out for yourself. Number one, no antenna bands. So any phone with a plastic edge is not going to have any antenna bands visible. And this is because of the signal of the antenna it needs to get through, and that is why you need antenna bands on aluminum build phones. And you see it all over here on the OnePlus 8 Pro. It's on the bottoms, it's on the sides, and it's on the top. The second way you can notice whether your phone is aluminum or plastic is the temperature. So metal, as we know, conducts heat very easily. But you will also likewise know that when it gets cold in a room, metal will feel cold to the touch, and the temperature of metal will change a lot more than plastic. When I woke up this morning, I picked up this OnePlus 8 Pro and I felt the metallic edge, and it was nice and cool to the touch. And glass will also exhibit a very similar property, but plastic will not. And generally, you will notice if you pick up a plastic edge phone, it doesn't change that much in terms of temperature and will never feel cool to the touch in the hand. And it's that cool to the touch feeling that I think really lends itself to a more premium build quality on flagship phones. And so let's now try to apply these two rules here to a number of the phones that I have, and let's see if it actually holds true. So here we have the Realme X2 Pro, terrific, affordable flagship from last year. And let's do the two rules here, the antenna rule and the temperature rule. So let's see, first of all, do we have antenna bands? Yes, we do. And the second rule, does the edge of the phone feel cool to the touch, or does it feel different than the ambient room temperature? Yes, it does. So in conclusion, the Realme X2 Pro is using an aluminum frame. The next phone I have to show is the Mi Note 10 Lite. So let's do the test on it. Does it have antenna bands? Yes and yes. And is the edge cool to the touch? Is it a different temperature than the ambient temperature of the room? Yes, it is. So in conclusion, the Mi Note 10 Lite is using an aluminum frame. And here we have the iPhone SE, same thing again. Antenna bands, yes, you see it right there. And on the other side, and is the temperature cool to the touch? Different than the ambient temperature of the room? Yes, it is. So aluminum frame and glass metal build on this $400 iPhone SE. And now one of my favorite affordable mid-range phones of 2020, the value champ here, the Redmi 10X Pro. Let's do the test. Do we see any antenna bands on this phone? None there, none there, none there, and none there. So no antenna bands on this phone. What about the temperature? Is it different than the ambient temperature of the room? It is not. It's room temperature here. It's not cold to the touch. So what does that mean, guys? The Redmi 10X Pro is using a plastic frame. It may feel hard. It may have a metal-like property to it, but no, this is a plastic frame on the Redmi 10X Pro. And last but not least, I have here the Mi 9T Pro, Redmi K20 Pro, one of my all-time favorite phones from last year. And look at this glossy look. It's very similar to the one we see on the OnePlus Nord. But let's do the test here to this Mi 9T Pro. Are there antenna bands on this phone? There you see one, there you see another, and two at the bottom. So yes, you do see antenna bands on this phone. And is the temperature cool to the touch or different than the ambient temperature of the room? Yes, it is. So in conclusion, the Mi 9T Pro is using an aluminum frame, and it is a glossy frame, but it is aluminum nonetheless. So there you go, guys. I ran the test on all these phones, and it clearly shows which of these phones has an aluminum frame and which ones are using a plastic frame. And to any reviewer out there who does have a OnePlus Nord, you can apply this test to the phone and you'll pretty much see it is a plastic build quality. And once I viewed a number of these unboxings and first impressions, I noticed there were no antenna bands on the OnePlus Nord, and I'm sure the frame doesn't change temperatures, which basically means it's a plastic frame. And that's okay. It's okay to have a plastic build phone. In fact, I love the Redmi 10X Pro, and it is using a plastic frame. And other phones like the Mi 10 Lite 5G have used a plastic frame as well. It's okay to use a plastic frame phone. But what I don't like is when companies obfuscate and don't really share the full details of the build quality of their phone and are happy to allow reviewers and publications to make that mistake. Now, obviously, we'll see in the full review if these mistakes are corrected. But for now, I would say to OnePlus, don't hide the fact that you're using a plastic frame. You should embrace it. And that's exactly what Apple did in 2013 when they released the iPhone 5C. Now, when that phone was released, I remember Johnny Ive clearly saying that this phone was unapologetically plastic. They didn't shy away from the build quality of the phone. And this is not just a OnePlus problem. I think a lot of Android manufacturers need to really think about how they promote their devices and not hide very specific facts about their phone just because they want to look like a more premium device. And it is okay, OnePlus. Your flagship series of phones is aluminum build. It's understandable that you wanted to cut costs and use a plastic frame on your mid-range phones. But I just don't think they should hide or shy away from that fact because it only makes them look worse. I think it's more important to be direct with your audience, tell them the truth, and I think it's a win-win for both companies and consumers in the end. But hit me up in the comments. What are your thoughts on the OnePlus Nord using a plastic frame in terms of build quality? Is it a deal breaker for you to consider this phone? And what do you think of just the entire OnePlus Nord launch in general? Hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. And if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon for future updates. So we shall see, guys, in the full reviews of OnePlus Nord. And it is coming to Hong Kong, guys. Haven't decided if I'm going to review it yet because there will likely be like 500 reviews by the time I get it. So I don't even know if it will be worth it. But anyways, that's it for this one. And this is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech signing off. Have a good one.